Hey, this is Misha from iHeartRadio, the talk of San Diego, and guess who we are talking with today at the future of Tuna Harbor?
Teresa Sinecrope-Talley.
Teresa, who and what do you do here with the Tuna Harbor Experience and Event?
I'm a coastal specialist with California Sea Grant, and so I'm a local. What that means is I'm a local scientist who works with the fishermen, among others, in the coastal community to help provide data needs, information gaps, help them find solutions to coastal problems through research and outreach.
Okay, so you're a paper pusher.
No, well, field researcher. I try not. There's always paper pushing, but I like to get out in the field and talk to people, and so that's how I hooked up or connected with the fishermen, was coming down and just saying, what issues do you have? What are you trying to do? And this is when I started with Sea Grant in 2012. And they said, boy, we've been trying to direct market some of our fish to start a dockside market. Mm-hmm. And so I started working with them, identifying what the barriers were to starting that market. And that's what led to a study I did with a colleague, Adina Batnitsky. She's at University of San Diego. And we were looking at the feasibility of dockside markets in San Diego. So looking at what the supply of fish would be in San Diego and what the public demand was. And through our study, there were a number of barriers that were identified that we went from there, and it was like layers on an onion. Once you start to solve one thing or address it, there were more. So, but the big goal of mine is to help revitalize commercial fisheries in San Diego and Southern California, and really raise people's awareness about the diversity of it's a really unique palette of seafood species that we catch here.
I never even heard of the fish market here, and I've been here in San Diego for a long time. So what is about that? You doing a fundraising feasibility study, or is a market fundraising,
Nope, so I'm not fundraising for the business at all. I'm a scientist, so we just collected data on the potential supply. We talked to a bunch of fishermen and said, are you willing to sell your fish? What do you have? And then in another set of surveys and events, we talked to members of the public and basically asked them, what do you eat now for seafood? Here's what's available locally. What would you buy? During that survey event, we also had chefs, so it served as an outreach event. So we got people learning more about what is caught locally. And so, not surprisingly, on the surveys, people said their top 3 seafood items were shrimp, tuna, and salmon. And that's a trend that there were some national studies through NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and they found throughout the country those are the top 3 species that people eat.
We know NOAA from the United Nations News Center.
Oh, good. Okay. Good. So that was really revealing that what people were eating, even if they eat seafood a few times a week, it didn't line up with what's caught here locally. So that was just disjunct. So then our next task so that informed one of our next steps, which was, outreach. How can we raise public awareness about our local fisheries, knowing that our local fisheries are environmentally, everything's environmentally responsibly sourced, right. And we have social, responsibility, and so you hear about slave trade and everything else overseas, but things are very well regulated here. So if you're buying domestic seafood, you're guaranteed that it's responsibly sourced. So from an environmental perspective, from a social perspective, and then buying locally helps with the local economy, right? You're keeping more of your dollars local and supporting the fishermen and aquaculture.
So the feasibility study is more of a communication platform between the fishermen, the market, and what's the future for Tuna Harbor?
This was it was a 1-year study a few years ago it was just collecting data that then we came up with a bunch of recommendations for various people that were interested in marketing. The port, I think, they wanted a dockside market, but it was really tough to get going or to get confidence in it, but seeing the information, seeing the data that this was in demand and there were fishermen there willing to work at it, maybe helped to sway them. It's speculation. The fishermen loved the information because they saw that people were interested in what they were catching or potentially interested, and that maybe they could go ahead with a dockside market. We did an information sheet for the public of, hey, here's what's out there, and So come down and get
Kind
it.
of public relations.
Yeah, so it was kind of connecting with this science, with this information and outreach, connecting the dots. So.
You might be the first scientist that was able to communicate with the public. You realize this?
No, that's not true. It's because I was looking at food.
Yeah, everybody's a very food conscientious,
Yes.
healthy communication, cleanliness, and how it's prepared. That's very easy. But is that in your studies too, or is that more of a commercial market?
I didn't look at food safety. It was just that initial study was just supply and demand. And since then, I've been working with the fishermen. Like I said, there's challenge after challenge with trying to revitalize a commercial fishery. Or your commercial fisheries. So a lot of it had to do with outreach and just getting more people down there. The fishermen hit, and they talked about it tonight, hit some permitting issues where a fisherman's market wasn't an official food facility in the eyes of the state, and so that took a change in legislation. So I was on working groups and trying to help with that effort. So kind of just poised to try to help however I can, and if it means research, then I can do it. If it means outreach and communicating with the public, or the port or agencies, then that's the sort of thing we do.
Okay, so how long have you been working on this whole project, and how long do you think that it will get up and taken running, and when the normal everyday San Diegan could come down and experience this whole new tuna harbor?
Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. So right now, you can come down and experience Tuna Harbor. It's a working fishing harbor.
When is it?
Well, the harbor itself, Tuna Harbor is a harbor. It's every day, every day. You can talk to the fishermen on the docks. The fishermen's market, it's the Tuna Harbor Dockside Market, and that's Saturday mornings from 8 until 1 p.m., and that's on the Fish Harbor Pier over by, between Seaport Village and Chesapeake Seafood.
There you
So,
go.
and they have a website.
Have you been there?
I get 100% of my fish from local fishermen now. So I'm down there at least every couple of weeks.
So if it's the outsourcing from our oceans, or is it outsourcing from other supply?
No, so with the new legislation that we help work on that permits this market, it has to be in San Diego. You have to have a commercial fishing license in San Diego, and it's true of every county where there would be a fisherman's market. They would need the local fishing permits.
I know Pike does.
Do they?
Oh yeah.
And so at this fisherman's market, it's the fishermen and their families coming to sell their catch from the week. At most, they can sell fish for 2 other fishermen who maybe are back out fishing already. So they have their own and maybe a product of 1 or 2 other people. But then it gives you a whole range, a whole selection of seafood. And I think that the important thing is going and experiencing that, where you're talking to the people that caught your fish. You're seeing the boat right there on the dock. You can ask the fishermen and their families, you're going to take some home. How do you cook it? And then they tell you. And so it's an experience.
It's very family oriented, but yet tourist, because you might be from Seattle with Pike, and you might want to see the difference between the San Diego Tuna Harbor and Seattle's Pike.
Yeah, so I think especially later in the morning when tourists are waking up, you get the influx of people just saying, I'm just looking around, this is great. We, from California Sea Grant, we've hosted some touch tables down there every once in a while where people can pick up the crabs and sea urchin and snails.
Oh, so cool. And then have you had snails?
Yes. Yeah, since this market's open, and that's what I'm pushing for, so I'm also personally trying to be much more adventurous. I've tried pellets whelk, red sea urchin, rock crab, brown box crab.
And that comes from all Tuna Harbor?
There are over 65 species that our fishermen land here throughout the year, at least 65 that come in. So when you go to the market, the fisherman's market on any one Saturday morning, you'll see 20 or 30, up to 20 or 30 of those species.
Now, how many you think, actually, this is a real interesting question, how many you think of San Diegans actually know about Tuna Harbor? What's the percentage?
I have no idea. So there are 1.3 million people in San Diego, and every Saturday they get several hundred, depending on when, up to 1,000 customers. So I don't have my calculator.
Maybe a 1%. What are we going to do about
be.
that? What are we going to do about 10%, 15% having very lucrative, not only lucrative, just public relations regarding the Tuna Harbor?
So right now our fishing fleet's small. We have about 130 boats, and so I think no one would argue with the fact that the few fishermen we have couldn't possibly feed 3 million people in San Diego County. And so, so the idea is they want people down and raising awareness, but the growth has to be a little bit slower and responsible. So it's more than just advertising, which they haven't really advertised much yet. They're going on word of mouth and media coverage. So in February, if you look at Sunset Magazine, there was a beautiful Ocean to Table, is the name of the article, with great graphics and talking about the fishermen's market and some of their stories. And so that's that sort of coverage they've been using, but that what is there now has all been word of mouth. So, but I think with the idea that the developers were talking about of putting a market that's open all week long, that's going to take some planning, because the fishermen here will need a place to bring in their fish and maybe store it for the week. Because, like I said, 130 boats in all of San Diego, so we have a small fleet. You hear about artisanal fisheries that are, you think about South America or developing countries, but that's what we have here. They're all individually owned businesses. So each family maybe owns one boat, or at most 3 boats, and in a lot of cases. So.
It sounds like you have your work cut out for you.
I love it. I'm glad.
She loves the challenges. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Misha again from iHeartRadio and the Talk of San Diego, thanking Dr. Teresa Talley.
Thank you.
Take care.